Hey guys, Miles here. It's another Monday, so that means dry fire. We are going to be continuing our series of how to shoot a pistol. We are now, I don't know, on week 9 or 10. So if you're new to this series, make sure you watch the previous videos. There's a playlist in the description below. If you've been following the series, we're going to continue our discussion and kind of our journey into taking multiple shots. And we're still going to be talking about grip. This time, we're going to add on to what we've already covered. So stay tuned if you want to learn a really quick trick, a simple trick to managing muzzle rise much better. So about 2 weeks ago, we focused on your firing hand grip pressure, and there's a lot of different techniques out there, but more common than not, you're gonna hear a lot of instructors and shooters, they primarily give C-clamp pressure with their firing hand, okay? Of course, there's gonna be grip pressure around the entire grip, especially when you clamp down with your support hand, but primarily a C-clamp. With the support hand, again, lots of pressure throughout the grip, but generally speaking, you're going to have left and right pressure here, not necessarily to push the gun left and right, but it's just clamping down left and right, kind of keeping the gun steady here. It's not necessary, but it provides some added stability. It's not really necessary though. But here though is something that's very important. Even though when we're doing left and right, we're still clamping down across the entire grip, okay? So it just primarily kind of gives you an index point, or a starting point, I should say, for what your support hand should be doing. Before we move on, I want to reiterate how you possibly can get there easily with your support hand. Remember, we talked about index points. So for some people, it might be the trigger guard, some people it might be the middle finger, then they will meet their hands here and then roll in with their support hand. So just keep that in mind. With the support hand clamping down all over, and again, kind of left and right, there is going to be pressure here in the back as well, where kind of the meaty area of both hands are going to meet here, and you're clamping down as well in the back here. And that is kind of the, I guess, the result of pushing or squeezing left and right here. This is going to meet, this meaty area is going to meet with the meaty area of my firing hand here in the back. So as you are doing your dry fire and live fire, you want to make sure that this does not break. It stays consistent, because if you're shooting and it kind of breaks, then you're losing that consistency in your technique, and then that is going to also show in your shot patterns, right? So you can't really rely on inconsistent grip here. You need to make sure your human vice is exactly the same, or pretty much the same with each shot, so that you can predict that you're going to have good shots downrange. What we're going to do now is we're going to still talk about the grip here, and there's a lot more. Before we move on, I want everyone to know that grip is a very big topic, and you're going to continually tweak your grip. There are a lot of little nuances that we can discuss and that you are going to discover on your own, perhaps even learning from other instructors, but those nuances are a matter of style, and they may or may not work with you. So we can't cover every little thing here, and I do want to say that in the sense that as you begin to explore your grip more, as you begin to shoot, as you begin to look at your performance, you're going to tweak little things here where you might now adjust the pressure a little bit. Let me give you an example here before we move on. The push-pull is something that you may have learned before. Years ago, kind of when it first came out, the traditional way of teaching it is you're going to push in with your firing hand, this entire firing arm, and the support arm is actually pulling in. So it's a push-pull, push-pull, and to help stabilize the gun. That's something that is still taught today, but newer shooters don't use that concept exactly the way it was taught in the past, but they still can do a little bit of a push-pull. Is that wrong? Is that wrong with the grip? No, it's more a matter of technique. So these days, like I do as well, sometimes I will fiddle with a little push-pull, but that push-pull just happens with my hands, with my grip. I'm not really using my arms or my shoulders anymore. So I want to really put that out there, because as you do, if you're watching this series, it tells me you're serious about shooting, which is awesome. And you're absolutely going to learn a lot if you continue with this series. But remember, this is not the end-all be-all. Grip, as I already mentioned, I'm going to reiterate because it's super important, is very personal. And there's going to be a lot of little tweaks that you're going to make as you continue to shoot, especially if you're serious. So now what we want to do is kind of focus on things that are more universal depending or regardless of what type of grip you have. So if you practice the live fire, you know the C-clamp pressure with the firing hand, we worked on the support hand grip pressure, Now you may have gone to the range, did the live fire, and maybe you're videoing yourself and you still see kind of your muzzle moving all over the place. So we left off a particular concept or technique, which is pretty much universal with every grip and is going to help you, and that is to stiffen or lock your wrists, okay? Technically speaking, you're not gonna, I mean, you really aren't going to lock this wrist where there's no movement whatsoever. So some people will say, you know, make your wrist stiff. Whichever word you want to use, it's the same thing here. You don't want a limp wrist. You don't want to have the gun go off and your wrist is going up and down just like this. So you might have great grip pressure on both your firing and your sport hand, but you don't have good wrist tension. And without good wrist tension, when this slide cycles, okay, your wrist will be limp and the muzzle is going to go up. So even with this, this is not enough. Remember baby steps, right, where you have to layer everything. So now what I want you to do is when you're dry firing is everything is the same and you can establish your grip, go to the previous weeks, you can follow any of the dry fire processes or programs there. What we're doing right now is just a little add-on here. So every time you push out now, you want to make sure that you are locking your wrist, stiffening your wrist. What you can envision is that if you had to do push-ups, if this was a plastic gun here, if I had to do push-ups, you know how some people do push-ups on their knuckles? You want to do push-ups on the barrel of the gun. If you limp wrist, when you do a push-up, it's going to move and you're going to fall. So you need to lock your wrists in place and then you could do push-ups just like this on the ground. Now, if it's too hard, you could do it along the wall here and put some weight, just lean into it a little bit, but that's going to reinforce how stiff your wrist should be. And when you do this, when you take shots, there's going to be less muzzle rise. And what does that mean when there's less muzzle rise? Your sights are going to be on target faster so that you can shoot sooner, aka shoot faster. So this particular dry fire practice or day is all about pushing out you already know this. This is going to also give you time to rehearse or reinforce the grip pressures that we've been talking about. You're going to push out, and when you do this, you want to tense up your wrists. Really focus on locking these tendons, locking the wrist, both the firing hand and the shooting hand. So we're going to push out, and I would take 2-3 shots. Remember, we're doing multiple shot engagements right now. And when you do that, here's the key. Just like the other videos, you need to hyper focus. Okay, you need to hyper focus on what your wrists are doing. So when I punch out, maybe I take 2 shots. The whole time, before, during, after, I am focused in seeing if my wrist tension remained the same and was consistent. Here's the thing. This is the difference between someone who's very experienced, someone who really knows this well, is that they're so in tune with their pressure that they know if they let up maybe 5%, 10% on which trigger pull. That's how much detail you need to take in. So I like to use a dry fire mag because it's going to allow me to take multiple shots, 2-3 shots without racking the slide, and I can really focus in on what I'm supposed to focus in on, which is wrist tension. So what you're going to be doing is you're taking these multiple shots and you need to understand, if you let up, let's say on the second rep, the second trigger squeeze, you let up by, let's say 5%. I'm just, you know, these percentages are just made up, but you know if there's a little bit of a decrease, that means your next rep, so maybe now I'm gonna do 3 shots, next rep I'm gonna make sure that, okay, I'm gonna make sure my wrists are locked the whole time. The pressure does not change. That's how much detail you need to take in, okay? The same thing goes with the support hand here. So it's not just, it's the firing hand. I've been showing you this side, but everything else is the same here. With my support hand, I want this locked, okay? Now, some of you might have a grip like this. Some of you might have a grip like this. Again, matter of style. There's different techniques, so don't get too bogged down with that. The main thing is you want to stiffen or lock your wrist. Again, whichever word you want to use here. And from this point, pull the trigger and know if there is any movement. All right. Now, if you're watching this video and you see my gun dip a little bit, it is because I haven't changed the springs in this dry fire mag. I will for the next session so you'll see it. But ideally, what you want is there should be no dip in the muzzle as well, because now we're working on all the things that we've been working on in this series. Okay. So this is a very, very simple dry fire exercise. And there's a lot more talking because it's important you understand why we're doing this. So you're going to present out to whatever you're shooting and you're at your home or wherever you are, take 2, 3, 4, 5 shots. As you present and as I'm prepping the trigger, I'm going to lock my wrists, take those shots, reset and prep, and then ask myself, did I keep my wrists locked before, during, after? If I did, finger off the trigger, back, relax, okay? Do it again, okay? Maybe I take 2 shots right now, and then I do the reset and prep, okay? Everything that we're doing, you must not forget what we covered in the previous weeks. The whole idea here is that, yes, we are adding layers, but you do not want to get sloppy with everything else we've covered. If you are feeling overwhelmed, then don't move on to this just yet. Remember, these videos are going to be up on YouTube, so you can come back to this whenever you want to, but it's very important that your C-clamp pressure with your firing hand, the pressure with your support hand, it's all good to go. And it's pretty much ingrained in your subconscious. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you don't want to be in that state where you're constantly thinking of every little thing. Did I do that right? Did I do that right? Because then you're not going to be able to focus on locking your wrists, okay? So a lot of more talking for this session here, but I do want you to understand that this is something that is extremely important. You can't limp wrist. If you do have a plastic gun, cert gun, or something that, I mean, you could use this dry, okay? You could use this on a bed, or maybe do this exercise from a 45-degree angle rather than, let's say, you parallel to the ground like a regular push-up. So if I have a couch or something soft, I might rest the barrel there, the muzzle, and I'll lean into it like I was doing a push-up, and I need to lock my wrist. So that's something that we can add into the dry fire session. If you have a plastic gun, it's easier. If you do this, just make sure that you know you're not ruining your gun and it's completely dry. But you can do those push-ups, and you'll see that if you keep your wrist locked, you'll be able to do that. Then add on 2, 3, 4, 5 trigger pulls with the focus on the wrist tension. Again, I like to use the dry fire mag. It's going to allow you to do this without worrying about anything else, racking the slide, but then also it's going to allow you to work on everything we've covered in the previous videos, the reset and prep, all that stuff is extremely important. So that's the next layer we're adding on top to work on your grip for multiple shot engagements. This video is a lot more talking, a lot more understanding the concept of the technique, but it is extremely powerful. So work on this dry fire, and if you do this appropriately, or properly I should say, Thursday, it's going to be much easier when we do live fire. As always, if you like the video, please give us a thumbs up, comment with your thoughts, and if you want to see more videos like this and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button. See you guys next week.